What I'm going to do is walk you through a few things we show about where AI can go wrong. It's really important because, and you don't need to show your hands. Remember, I've seen the guest list, but are there any chief executive officers in the room? See, so you will be the trusted advisor of those folks who say, should we do this? Because, and I'm having a bit of fun here, because Elon and Bill and all these people say AI could be bad, and they might know what they're talking about. Equally, if you look at the same names and then 6 months on when they launched their own AI product, they said AI could be good. So the jury's out. We're going to show you what can go wrong and then describe how you mitigate the risk through asking the right business problems and bringing your AI to the data that you own. And I'll come back to that as a theme. I'll show you a picture of some hardware. Hey, you're in Mercedes world. There's hardware all around you. Don't get upset by it. But I'll contextualize why understanding your silicon, understanding how data flows around, makes you as individuals invaluable to whichever customer you are talking to, whether it's a commercial relationship, whether it's an internal customer, your CEO, or the folks in your organization that you serve, or the citizens or customers that you serve. Because you can see by looking at me, a few years ago, I was working in IT departments where technology didn't serve anyone except the people who worked for your company. And then along came this guy called Jeff Bezos. Show of hands, anyone not heard of Jeff Bezos? Remember the test? See? Jeff Bezos of Amazon, right? There's just for fun, I won't pick on you. Who has an Amazon account? Yeah, there is a moment you look around and you go, holy cannoli, What that demonstrated was that the technology we run and manage has to go out to customers. People who buy stuff, customers. Not some philosophical, they're a part of the business, so they're a customer. The real people who pay money for the goods and services you do. And if you're in public sector, the same applies. They might not pay money, but actually they really do. Even if they're tourists visiting, they've paid their tax on the ferry, on the plane, or whatever. So it's technology now making money and saving money at point of sale in a way that a few years ago it never did. That was a bit special. AI takes that to the next level. Why there is such a hype? Well, look across on the right. We've got there organizations are planning to use it more than half. 40% say they can't find the right skills. Because I asked if there are no chief execs in the room, I'm going to have some fun with this one. If you ask a bunch of chief execs what's the biggest challenge, they will typically say, we can't get the skills, that the people won't change, they won't change. You then ask folk, what's the big challenge? It's like the company's not ready for it. So what we really need is to bring the executive, the management, the folks, the customers, everyone together and go, how do you want to change and where do we automate using AI? It is now everyone's job to address that challenge. Because everyone blames everyone else for not adopting AI. Kind of weird. But we had a question at something similar recently. Great question. It was like, why don't people get involved in transformation? My view, most folks do. But then look at businesses like HMV, like EMI, the record company. The change from the top was very slow, so slow. Some of you don't know who I'm talking about. Anyone heard of Blockbuster Video? Now, they were disrupted out of existence, not their fault. But actually, I would argue, hell yes, it's their fault. But not the people who worked in the store. They could probably see it coming. So, look to the right, and you'll see a more Positive statement. Look, training on enterprise data is important. Nearly 4 out of 5 folks asked. And I know the source of this, you can see there, is a Dell technology survey and a few others that we ran a few years ago, about 500 customers. And then that huge number, the hybrid model. The hybrid model really matters. I was with a customer, someone I know really well. And there was kind of a goodbye call. They were like, Paul, we're going all in with Microsoft. We won't be using you anymore. Everything in the cloud, everything in Microsoft. Been great working with you. I was like, that's not my job to sell you on stuff, but before you go, everything on Microsoft. Yes, he says. And you use ServiceNow. He said, yes, we do use ServiceNow. And you have Salesforce for your sales team to keep record. Yes, we have that. So everything, that's all going into Microsoft. Said, no, don't be silly. He said, so all in Microsoft except that and that. Oh, and not that, not that. And suddenly you're like, be careful of what you're claiming for your organization. What people are starting to recognize across the industry is that actually going to one company and getting everything at a hyperscale level is probably not the reality of your world. Why does that work for everyone in this room? As we collaborate together, you might need single points for many things, but getting one sole supplier isn't an ecosystem that's proven to be technologically sustainable. What do I mean by that? Well, Salesforce is a really good customer relationship management system. The next one will come along, it'll be better. Don't know if any of you played with Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. They compete. You probably end up with both, you know? Now I know the Apple and Android thing is you choose one, you choose the other. But then you tend not to run either on your laptop or PC device. You might run a Mac, so it's an OS that's similar. You see what I mean? You're starting to see there's many ways as an individual to consume your tech. There's many, many ways as a business you need to think of consuming your tech. That's what hybrid means. Everything I show you is in the public domain. That means it's been reported by the press or reported by the company, very often both. Some you may even recognize. There will be some company names and some organization names that you will recognize. We are not having a go at them, far from it. These are people that held their hand up and went, our bad, mea culpa. Trying as a technology community to get things better. First way you do it is when you see something wrong, call it. But this is the sort of thing we collectively need to move through our organization and say, here are some of the risks. Some are very commercial. Some are a bit more metaphysical. If you're all right, just a few minutes on this, walking through what they may be. There's 5 or 6 of them. So the first one, I put my hand up pretty quick and I said, do you have an Amazon account? It's my friends at Amazon. And you're probably sitting there saying, yeah, but they should know better. Yeah, they should. But they're early adopters, remember this. Often their mistakes are ones none of us have to repeat. So in their defense, that idea of showing cases that closely matched existing material put them at that intellectual property risk. Now, I don't know if anyone knows folks who work with Amazon, they guard their intellectual property like every big American company quite tightly. It matters. So using ChatGPT brought a risk to them that they deemed unacceptable. And I offer you a gift and Sumillion may be able to sell it to you as £1 a seat per month or something like that, whatever, later. They don't know I'm going to do that, by the way. Hi guys. You got to figure it out. If not, we'll figure it out. It's a gift. This one's my favorite because I know Samsung quite well. I'm a big fan of some of the stuff that they do. And again, it's ChatGPT, but remember, it was one of the first generative AI tools that really hit the world and was free at point of use. But again, they put in a data leakage challenge. What they found as they add things into ChatGPT in that version, things were coming out where they weren't expected across the world. Samsung data. And they weren't the only ones. There was, look, really, any of you are familiar with GDPR? Start working out that You lose names, very, very bad. Email addresses, not getting better. Payment addresses, this is getting worse. By the time you're down to the last thing, your compliance officer is probably in the nearest acute hospital ward with a heart attack. That is such a bad breach of data protection. I love this, and I might not have my facts right, but it is the chief exec talking to the data protection lead saying, just how much are we on the stick of this for if they prove that we did this? And remember, it's pretty easy to track this. I think it's 4% of your global turnover. Quite a depressing thing to say to a finance director. So again, it's our job to warn folks who go, yeah, I've got all this hype. We need to get one of them generative AIs. Well, let's look out. The consequences can be severe with the compliance problems. And in banking, you'll see a slide later, again, very early adopters. And do you remember this? The BBC loved this, and I really don't know why. But I must confess, if you want to get a story onto the BBC, I have a strong suspicion that all you need to do is go, lawyer, and then write the rest of the story. The BBC editors go, it's something about a lawyer, put it on the front page. It seems to work. If anyone here knows people at the BBC and wants to share why, I'm here all day. I'd love to know why. It seems to work. What the lawyer did was go to ChatGPT. Again, it was the first mover. And say, just fill in the citations that supports this case. Does anyone remember it? So, generative AI made up the citations. It's like going to J.K. Rowling and saying, just make up what happens at school. Oh, that's a good theme. There's a wizard, and generative AI isn't called Bob's Honest AI. Generative AI is not sat there saying, always tells the truth AI. It's generative AI. The judge looked at the case and looked at the citations and went, none of these exist. Lawyer gets a slap on the wrist. It is mildly embarrassing. Mildly embarrassing that then went viral because, everyone loves a good lawyer is an idiot story, especially a New York lawyer, as it turned out where they were. And it was at federal court. This is the highest court in the land, wasting the judge's time. That's ignorance of the fact it makes things up. This is well telegraphed. I personally find this very shocking. This is an MIT student, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the top universities in the world. Smart people go there, smart people teach there. But someone just putting this into, again, a generative AI image generator, saying, can you get the picture for LinkedIn or whatever it might have been, make it look a bit more professional, I think that's a shocking result. Now I'll give you an answer as to why. Because that image engine will have been trained on certain images. And we all know that certain images will build in a bias. So if you train on, I want an image of a professional footballer, have a think how many female images you think the AI would generate unless you were conscious that your training's got to remove that bias. Advise your people that the data is very important. If you use publicly available models, you might not be able to be assured that the data was as fit for purpose as you would want it to be. And on the subject of professional football players, this is my favourite. You see at the bottom, IP infringement. I use a laser beam. I don't know if the laser beam works. Does the laser beam work? No, it doesn't. Laser beam. Do you see the Getty Images logo? You've all heard of Getty Images. See, it's a company called Getty that does images. Great name for a company. And they're quite protective of the images. They paid a lot of money for these in some cases, or the rights to take the pictures, just as they have there at what looks to me like Spurs versus Liverpool. There's the AI generated one. The AI is so well trained, it just removes I and then puts a watermark in there. My sister's a lawyer. We were having some fun one evening, saying, what do you do for your living? And I said this. And she went, I've got to tell you, as an IP lawyer, having that against that is an almost proof that that has happened. Again, sitting with the finance director going, what are we on the hook for this time? Well, we stole Getty's image. They're going to win. We're going to owe them whatever the judge thinks that image did damage to them, including potential damage. Or you can steal Getty images. These are the risks. What is the reward? Huge. How do you mitigate against the risk? This is my gift to you. Now talk to Sumillion, who will talk to Dell, who will talk to all sorts of people. This is, for the technical folks in the room, a simple redirect from URL. Real easy. When I'm on the Dell network, and I go to any search engine to ChatGPT and then click on ChatGPT, and we've just started doing it for Google Gemini. This comes up. I can click through, continue, but that is paraphrasing something our chief exec said November 2 years ago, which was simply fill your boots with this generative AI thing, but don't put anything in that you wouldn't want on the internet next day. So, don't need to put your hands up, because that's not fair. If you haven't got this, sometimes I get really sweary. Why the Freddie Mercury not? Be super clear on this. Now, your lawyer goes, well, we've made some effort. It might not be entirely the company's fault. Culpability is now being managed. Without this sort of interrupt, become a bit more culpable. This costs almost nothing to do. Now, if this was a purely commercial audience, and I was coaching folks about how you make money from AI, I would say what you would do is you do the URL redirect, and then you build that into a service that you sit in front of the search engine of the company. And just before it hits all the filtering, drop in the little interrupt, and then manage that so you're fitting into the Active Directory and things like that. Charge £1 per month per seat, and I think I said that phrase. Quite a reasonable sum. Anyone who knows what they're doing realizes that's an outrageous amount of profit. But it's profit on £1, so 50% plus 50p. Actually, the protection it gives you is worth someone else making 50% profit on it. It's the protection it gives you. It's like saying to the people who pack your parachute, no, I'm not going to tip you. You want to say that after they've packed the parachute, right? Yeah. See the nodding there going, that experience, yeah? It hurts, doesn't it? So please, think about this, all the type of things you need to do. Now, building an interrupt for a URL search sounds technical, but actually everything to do with AI is a business question. And you can see up there, this should be in the strategy deck. This actually is the strategy deck. So I've left the note in, because this was one of our technical people saying, oh yeah, color it so it matches strategy. It's not a technical slide. That is a business question. What do you do first? Well, I'm telling you, if you're not already doing it, put that interrupt in, right? Please. But then look down that. Work with everyone you know and trust. And, but we can give these slides out, can't we? Particularly this slide. Take this slide and work through folks in your org. What are we going to do about this? And it is a we. I've got one company I work with quite closely, and it's one of their IT people who actually works in the networking crew, meets with the legal counsel once a month, just go through this. I can't remember in my few years of doing this, a legal person going to IT saying we need a regular meeting. Actually, in the old days, if that happened, you'd think, oh God, what have I done? Now it's like, what can we do to protect the organization? What can we do as we move forward with ideas to make sure legal are going, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. And that final one, I want to add not just responsible, but sustainable. Becomes really important to everyone in this room, I'm sure. If your AI is absolutely brilliant and does everything you want, but the cost is huge, not in commercial terms, but in sustainability terms, or the cost in some of the mistakes we've seen just starts creeping up. We've got a president of sales who says, don't be one of those folks. It doesn't make sense to just cash in quickly at the cost of something significant later on. Sustainable in all ways. Okay, I want to show you something some people ask a lot, others they're kind of like, no, I'm comfortable with this. And fundamentally, who's doing this and since when? So this is in The Economist and all in public domain, and it's from 20 to 23 or 22 in some cases. And you can see each of this is my fun one, earnings call. Look at that technology. I have never seen a time where just saying on an earnings call, I've done some research on this, most chief executives in the United Kingdom are between the age of 55 and 65. Most chief executives in the United Kingdom have actually been with the same company for at least 35 years. And most chief executives in this country, in the United Kingdom, who are between those ages and been with a company that long, are white and male. Now, with that, you've immediately got a bias and you might want to do something about that. But they, in all of these industries across the world, sit on an earnings call and go, we're going to embed AI into our company. And their share price goes up. I don't make the rules. I can't think of a time where just saying you're going to use a technology made the company more valuable. And here's something we all need to be aware of, whether in public sector or private sector. As you talk to that individual in your org, it is being very clear that if they don't talk about it, their organization is going to lose value or reputation, or it's going to be harder to hire people. I've heard the phrase, you're not going to lose your job to some AI. You're going to lose your job to someone working with AI. I absolutely stand by that. And what we're seeing is more and more of these earnings calls proving that. And more of the job listings, again, in technology sector, you'd expect banks and retail. Who expected retail to start looking for AI experienced developers? Now, there's a show of hands. Does anyone expect retailers to start looking for software developers? Okay, let's do this again. So you don't expect retailers looking for AI people. Hands down, start again. How many of you have Amazon accounts? Who do you think the retailers are competing against? And then look right, yeah, it's now you're like, oh, shit. It's competitive response, isn't it? What I love about this chart, and bear with, I will accelerate as we go. This is really important. That's patents. In the last 18 months ago, but the previous 2 years, the pre-ChatGPT, look at who was patenting AI. Now, if you look at healthcare and healthcare products, it exceeds the tech industry, if you add the two together. You know, finance services, and add that to where's banking at the top. Finance services and banking, it's off the scale. Off who is using AI? It's right there. They patented stuff. Early adopters. Now, what that means is two things. Where do you go to find out, accelerate your own journey? Go and talk to people from these sectors. Technology, you've got easy access to. You're welcome. But actually the finance sector, if you have personal friends, if you've got people supplying you, the organization that does your own banking, you will have one regardless. See whether they can facilitate meeting their AI team and tell you what they're doing and how they can do it. Actually talk to someone who's not in your industry, because if they're in the finance industry or the healthcare services or the media industry, you might find they've got some experience from as much as 4 years ago. Bag it. If in doubt. What we're urging is build a community. Now, you had a flash glimpse of this one. I just wanted to show you what AI can do. I'll talk about some other use cases, and then I'll bring something that's really very current to you. That's okay. And we're doing for time. We're not going to bore everyone solid yet. So I can see some people at the back sleeping, but that's I'll let it go. You see that's a seatbelt bracket. I want you to imagine for a moment you're in the business of manufacturing that. So why does that scare you? You know, generative AI designed that, and it is manufacturable. The rules they set out were build a bracket for the seat belts that is lighter, uses fewer components, and is stronger. So it did. Now imagine your job, and you've just started a company. Where are we about? Addleston. The Addleston Seatbelt Bracket Company. And you're going around knocking on the door of Seat and Mercedes-Benz, and you're saying, do you have to fit seatbelt brackets in your cars? And they go, yes, it's the law. And you have them fitted already, and you buy them from supplier X. And they go, yes, how did you know? Well, that's my business to know. I can make them 40% lighter, 20% stronger, and with less material and fewer components, chances are I can be 20% cheaper. How many BMWs do you make a year? How much does each of those cost you? I'm going to make up some numbers here. Imagine that costs 100 euros. Should we make an assumption there's 100,000 BMWs a year manufactured that need 200,000 of those fitted? Anyone want to get their phone out and work out what a 20% saving will be to Mercedes-Benz? That is why you're very afraid. 100,000 Benzes that need two of those is 200,000 at $100 per bracket. And they need two of them. You are talking about a 20% saving to make a stronger, lighter product of millions. Now you're thinking, yeah, but the company that makes that should be doing that. Don't make that assumption. Yeah, sitting there going, yeah, if they don't. If they don't, they're already dead, because that's not a graphic, that's a photograph. That's a rendering of the company that makes that, saying, how do I do it? There's our friend from NASA saying this, we just need something that flexes and is strong. Generative AI took all the data NASA had on how to make that bracket, and they made that. Quite important, I'm sure you all know, in the space business, to fundamentally have strong and light as a good rule. Does anyone want to know what the third thing NASA has? Strong, light, and safe is actually, you're all going as blindingly obvious now. And if you work for NASA, you go, you forgot the cheap at the beginning, Paul. Lowest bidder at the beginning. But again, less material, stronger, lighter, whatever. Volkswagen had a good play with this. See the bright orange things on that? You can't buy that concept. Bright orange things are AI, generative AI designed spokes and wheels, and I don't know what you call that. It's the bit that holds the wing mirror. Stronger, lighter, composite material, cheaper to make, and really efficient to fit in the factory. Volkswagen built this just to prove that, not to worry their designers, but if you work with generative AI, we can innovate and make a better product. Not just about manufacturing. Remember, you can take sports photos and create them. This is really important. What is generative AI doing when you're mixed with people who can ask the right questions? It's doing some amazing things. There's a new language with this. Content creation is kind of creating those images. Now, if you get it right, and let's just say you're presenting a small PowerPoint to get a point of view over, you can use generative AI to create unique images to that PowerPoint that really reinforce them. If someone else is just using PowerPoint templates, they're going to look like me, and you're going to look like the coolest kid in the room. Nothing wrong with being the coolest kid in the room when you've got to make a point and you want your point of view to be better put across. Use images. Picture paints 1,000 words, doesn't it? So that's the sort of content creation there. We know a company that's based out of Texas that creates content where if you train it with your organization's data, it will write plausible, viable sales documents, customer documents, manuals, using it as a pilot at the moment, forgive the pun, in the airline industry just for the repair manual, just so they can be translated multiple languages. Brilliant. At the moment, the cost of translating these manuals is huge. Generative AI does it almost for free per item produced. And when they change the main manual, translation through 26 different languages happens. Who do you sell that to? Who do you buy it from? Who in your org has to produce documents in multiple languages? There's an AI that can do it that's proven. Not just Dell technology that uses it. You don't have to show your hands. You've all heard of NVIDIA, the $1 trillion AI company. They use it. They use that software. So the early adopters in the tech industry knows what good looks like. You can buy that through Sumillion, through Dell. You can buy that through Sumillion, through Dell right now. Are you ready for this? I'm going to put something in your head now. And you're going to hate me for this. Do you remember the Comic Relief song? Remember Peter Kay? Do you know the way to Amarillo? That's getting in your head. The other Peter Kay Christmas song. Getting in your head now, isn't it? Do you know the way to Amarillo? Has anyone been to Amarillo? I haven't. Very seriously, I was doing this yesterday. This very thing is very important for us. And I was with a guy who went, yes, I've been to Amarillo. Said, tell everyone how big the town is. It's a really small town. And, not by US standards. This is sort of under 1 million people in the city of Amarillo, made famous by a song sung by a Brit, written by a US man. There you go. What they asked us to do was create, not a digital human, a digital assistant. Because one of the challenges the great city of Amarillo has is, for example, someone visits or someone decides to buy a property there, and the first thing they need to do is go to the city of Amarillo, and in true land of the free and home of the brave style, the first question isn't where do I get my schools, where do I get the hospital, it's where do I pay my taxes? Because if you don't pay your taxes in the land of the free and the home of the brave, it doesn't matter where the school is, you ain't going to go there. You don't pay your taxes in the land of the home of the land of the, doesn't matter where the hospital is, you haven't got your insurance, you're not going to go there. It's not quite as hard as that. But what we co-developed with an ecosystem, with a software partner, and with NVIDIA, is this avatar. And when you walk up to it and talk, they'll answer in the language you spoke in, as long as it's one of the languages we've pre-trained the model. Now, in Amarillo, we can pick the favorite languages, the languages most likely to be thrown at the computer, at the avatar, at the digital assistant. This we are so proud of. We announced this at Dell Technology World in Las Vegas last year, and we demoed it. Anyone ever done a tech demo? How did it go? Yeah, last year was like that. It was kind of harsh. Got a really good friend who was kind of built the demo, is the kind of the lead, the PI we call him, and he was sort of, how did it go, Mark? He used a fantastic Celtic word, I tell you, unrepeatable. Now we got it nailed down, and thanks to Amarillo investing a bit of time as well as money, we are now launching this at Dell Technology World next month. That means today we can sit with Sumillion and say, this is the bill of materials, these are the SKUs, this is some of the technology options you have, because the partner Amarillo use aren't quite ready to come to Europe, but they are comfortable to say this is what's behind what we do, and since we're not going to sell it in Europe, you might as well take the technology. Thank you, we said. Most of that is available open source, so there's support costs that you might want to consider. The net of this is if you've got the right data and you have a need for an assistant that can either do multi-language or provide expert advice or simple things like, do you know the way to Amarillo? Don't make a digital assistant that's the same as Google. Make it your digital assistant. Do you know the way to Amarillo because we're in the shipping business and I've got a 50-ton elephant that needs to be taken there safely? Digital assistant looks around and goes, livestock to Amarillo will need these certificates for it. That's what a well-trained digital assistant will do. How do I know this? Imagine you're in the shipping business and we hired you to know that stuff. You'd be trained, you'd keep up to date with everything, you would do exactly what the digital assistant there does. That we feed that data we just call teaching folks learning experience doing your job. So the digital assistant will support a real human. It might be a point of contact for frequently asked questions. We would encourage you, as everyone in the room, to think, how and where can the people I work with become more efficient with a digital assistant? And why am I passionate about this? The first time we used digital assistants at Dell Technologies, and then got rewarded for it. What that means is someone bought it. Was in the British healthcare sector. There's a case study, you can look it up. Again, we'll send some details later. North Tees and Tyneside NHS Trust was selected to be a super hub for oncologists. If some of you know the medical profession, here's the phrase: no one has cancer until an oncologist says they have cancer. So these are people who spend years training to spot from an image, often an X-ray, but now soft tissue images from PET scans. And that they are there to help people who might get sick or are getting sick but might not know it. The earlier you catch that, anyone who knows about it, survivability can double, triple, to the point of which a good early catch means you're not going to get that sick. Short term, the drugs will probably make you sicker than the cancer will. Long term, you survive. This is really important to everyone. Putting technology in helped oncologists identify cancer early. Nice to have, you say. Riddle me this. You shout it out if you think you know the answer. Question number, I've got to phrase this in the right way. How many people think Britain has just the right number of oncologists? Answer B, probably not enough oncologists. Or C, an acute shortage of oncologists. Who thinks it's A, just about the right number? Who thinks it's B, just they could do with a few more? Who thinks it's C, an acute shortage? I'll give you a clue. Yeah. Now, insert the name of any country in the world. I mean it. Any country in the world. I've just been to New Zealand. Lucky me. How many of you think New Zealand has just the right number? It's the same answer. C, every time. Digital human means we can, in effect, make those rare people more productive, more efficient, actually help people. And that's what they live to help people. The digital assistant you see there might not in your world be able to help an oncologist, but they can help someone who just needs to know the way to Amarillo. Either way, life gets a little better. And the folks at Amarillo liked it so much. There's the Chief Information Officer, Richard. You will get these slides. You will get a voice version of this. There'll be access to this, saying lovely things about us that helped us bring this forward to a wider community. What does it run on? Good point. It runs on a lot of stuff. Myth number 1. You need a lot of data to train an AI. I would do an ABC again. The answer is it depends. If you're building a large language model from scratch and you're then going to release that into the world, you probably need a large amount of data. If you want to get the history of this, I would urge you to look at a TED talk by a lady called Fifi Lee or Fifi Lai. Same person, it's just how you pronounce it. The American version's Lee. Professor at Stanford, now works for the Meta Group, just to let you know. TED Talks from about 2006, and it's called Teaching Computers to See. Why is something that old relevant? Because actually it starts to look at the amount of data you need and the equipment you need to do it. She wanted to teach computers to see. We deliver something now we take for granted, that face recognition stuff. Image recognition. So the computer, you hold it up, the camera, it goes, that's a glass with, depends on the computer, doesn't it? Half full or half empty. It's the data that would make that statement. Fifi Lee used Facebook's images to just train. Lots of images already exist. So Facebook now have a model called Llama. So if you want to do image recognition, don't train a model from scratch. Have you got more images than Facebook? And if you don't know who Facebook owns, think Insta. Have you? You have more? No, you don't. I'm telling you now, you don't. If you did, trust me, I would know you already. But take the Llama model and work with whoever does your software development, and then look at what silicon is going to accelerate the way image recognition performs. So here at Dell and with Sumillion, we can sit with you and say, depending on the scale of what you do, will depend on whether you need to store a lot of images. The oncologists store a lot of images, and then we feed them back into the AI, so the AI is always getting new material. We'd suggest that with image recognition. You probably don't need one of these, which is a bit supercomputery. But if you're doing things at grand scale, give you an idea. You're looking down the barrel of one of those and around the £250,000 mark. If you need to go smaller scale, more standard scale, a 2U server that's the 750XE, it's got 2 or 3 NVIDIA graphic cards in it, or very soon AMD, or some Intel options on that, or some other silicon depending what you're doing. Work with us and size that, or buy a bigger workstation. People look at me and go, you're kidding, right? I go, well, if someone's already got the model and all you're doing is refining it, as long as you've got the data already, you can use your workstation. It's slow. You might want to soup it up a bit. But you can start to build your digital assistant based on the data you have to serve your citizens, serve your customers better. You do not need meta grade imaging to do image recognition for what you might want to do. We didn't when we were looking at cancer. Why? Because you can teach an oncologist from one book. So remember, you can shrink down a book to a digital image, probably run that on a workstation or even a laptop. If you write the sort of books I write, it's on a laptop, trust me. You don't need big storage. What you will probably need is these skills. You don't have data scientists, if you don't have advisory people that understand AI, that's the legal team. Get an ecosystem together where you can say, this is what we're trying to do, what do you think the risks are? And then involve them in every step of the proof of concept all the way through. Beautiful business practice, because you can launch quicker. And whatever business you're in, being the first with AI, trust me, everyone's going to want a piece of it. You will be heroes for a day. Which David Bowie said, we can all be heroes just for one day. And if you're too young to recognize that, go watch the Olympics opening ceremony and you'll go, oh yeah, I get that one now. But really bring a squad together to make that happen, because, and we do a lovely little whiteboard, does it shut out? Oh, come on, don't make me click it. We do a little whiteboard that explains, one more, thank you, in a little bit of technical detail how you assemble the data that you need, build, Gartner call a data lakehouse, it's just go with it, right? I didn't choose the name, that is a Gartner official name. And then from that, without having to recreate all the data stores that you have, you start to bring the models to the data. As long as the model can read the metadata and your governance layer is solid. So hang on, if I don't have the right to see the names and addresses in my structured data warehouse of my customers, but I do want to see the schema. I want to understand how the data formats so my AI can be trained on that. Yet there's a piece of software that you can put in between that. It's based right here in London. They're called Delphix, and they can obfuscate the data but retain the schema and the format. Why is that useful? You can train your AI on really, really top secret data that if you breach it, you get GDPR problems. This gives you an assurance and a certificate that you did the right thing. And it is the right thing. But your AI can then respond to customers individually without needing to know specifically who they are. Once they identify themselves, it goes, oh, I know the format. That's a name. That's an address. Those are data products that your data scientists can play with. It is far in advance of what you see there. And that self-service and auto-scaling at a workstation level, at a PC level, or in a place where you've got a small fleet of GPUs, or you're using Microsoft Copilot this is very much what the engine behind Copilot will look like. What we're seeing a lot of is people saying, I love Copilot, but could I keep the data for it that I generate on somewhere where it's mine? It's not Microsoft, it's mine. Now, T's and C's apply, but yes, there's a way to do that. Make a very private version of Copilot that's certified by Microsoft. We will see that extending to being a very common output, probably summertime, as Microsoft recognized doing business in the United States is different from the United States of Europe. It just is different rules. Oh, really? There's always one I forget. I don't want to leave you without really bringing you through, as we look at hardware, it's important, the value of getting the AI experience on the PC screen, on the laptop screen. Now, some of the things we're doing at Dell Technologies in the client space is just fantastic, but we're building our system to be AI ready. We are so convinced that this is everywhere, and we can see what the pandemic did to the use of video calls, for example. It used to be people go, oh, no, I won't do a video call. Now, one person puts the camera on, we all do it. What the heck? We're used to it, and the cat walks across, and it's not novel anymore. So just as we optimize PCs for that video environment and suppressed noise from the microphone, we're building in a thing called IPU, and it's the offload engine for the CPU. So a lot of the AI commands that you need are now executed on an IPU in the workstations and the desktops that we have. That will come to the server family. What does it mean? It means your CPU isn't working like Freddie Mercury at Live Aid just to do enough to keep going. You're actually offloading the work to the graphics card, to the IPU. And you're offloading, in some cases of the server, you're offloading some of the data that manages the equipment to the DPU. Four processing units in one server. Now, why is this important? Because actually, again, knowing your silicon means you might be able to buy a sustainable cloud-like experience and still either own the stuff or with Sumillion have it managed and owned by them, but you own the data. Sometimes if you're putting everything in the public cloud, you get a faster time to value. You get a breadth of use cases. But where that data resides might be a challenge for them. And as I wrap up, and I promise I wrap up on this slide, I'm going to just, we all right with that? Last slide, that's good. As you can see, you're thinking coffee. You're not thinking AI, you're thinking coffee. There's a moment I realized a few years ago, and forgive the personal story, but it's one of those things about the way the world is at the moment. When I looked at my immediate family, in-laws and outlaws included, I was the only one who had a job. Everyone else was either retired or worked for themselves. There's a bit of a trend going on there because seriously, when I joined the workplace, it wasn't very common. People who worked for themselves were quite rare. So that means I had access to what most people would identify as entrepreneurs. One of them's in the automotive business. There's a lot of preparation and detailing and looks after some fairly exquisite cars, not necessarily shiny and new, but they're shiny and very old. That's an interesting business to be in. His idea of AI is, could I make it look better than it was when I take a photo? I went, that's got the ethics of a cat. Come on, my friend, really? That's one brother-in-law. The other brother-in-law's in the diamond business. His business takes pictures of diamonds and then grades them. In both cases, I said to them, and I've said to friends who are entrepreneurs, my sister's a lawyer, she's an entrepreneur, she runs a partnership with just her and a business partner, one business partner. If the one piece of AI advice you take as an entrepreneur and therefore extend to someone who's supporting a business or a public sector, please take this away with you. Own your data and leave the matter in no doubt. Now that might be difficult short term, but medium and long term, you need partners like Sumillion to say this is how you do it. You might still want to access lots and lots of cloud stuff, And Sumillion will help you do that. But there are ways to separate the core data or a clean copy of it. So when the lawyers come call and go, why did your AI proper discriminate against Paul? Is it because he's the only one in the family with a job? And they go, well, actually, no. We'll look through our data, clickety, clickety, click. No, it's because he is what it says he is. Really tough for my lawyer to attack that. Oh, they defamed me. No, they didn't. They said he talks too much and he drives a Mercedes. Damn! They got me. Now, the reality of that is that data is also going to be your crown jewels, whether you're public sector and it's a compliance-led thing, or your private sector and the data becomes an asset to your company. Don't give it away. Please let the people that make the very big decisions, but everything's going to Microsoft, think before you say that. They're not against Microsoft. Just don't give away your crown jewels. There are ways to keep your data separate from the cloud or keep a copy where it's yours and you can prove it. And we're in a place where we can help you so you can get all the benefits of the public cloud without finding yourself in a place where to demonstrate that I'm in the right will cost so much money to get access to my data that I now can't afford to prove I'm in the right. And there'll be AIs protecting that once there's a commercial interest. So, own the data and leave the matter in no doubt. Work a community. Even if they're folks that you know and they're outside of your industry, work that community. Problem halved. Sorry, problem solved is a problem halved? Problem shared is a... Thank you. Problem shared. And the third and most important thing, just start moving on this. Don't sit there thinking, I'll wait for AI to come. Start shaking around your organization, talking to the folks you know and trust and say, let's go and do something. Even if it's as simple as a digital assistant, it doesn't need to be a 3D avatar. It doesn't need to be on a touch screen like Amarillo have. It could be just a simple app where your frequently asked questions land, but there's a face of your organization. So, I've been Paul Brook. I work for Dell Technologies. I've got to thank Sumillion for even thinking about inviting an idiot like me to talk to such smart, intelligent people as yourselves. I think it's time for questions, but I'm hoping it's coffee instead. Let's call it a day, yeah? Coffee time. Thank you.